Hi, my name is Sean Azu. I'm the Director of Operations at Star West Flight Academy. Star West is a flight school. We train pilots and we also offer discovery flights. We've actually rebranded in 2020, just recently back in January. And we offer new courses, which is why we rebranded. We offer private pilot licenses for people that want to fly just for private reasons, and also commercial pilot license for people that actually want to create a profession from piloting. We currently have 2 aircrafts. We've got about 17 students as of today in October 2020. And we're growing quite quickly. Ever since we started the rebranding process, it's been a very positive feedback that we've gotten from everybody here in Ghana. So we look forward to the future. We're located in Osu on Sunka number 7. You can find us on Google as well. And you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Star West Flight Academy as well. We also have a phone, so you can always call us if you have any questions, and we'd be happy to help you with anything relating to piloting as well. It's been really exciting working with Sina actually. For us, it's also great because it gets more people interested into aviation. I think for a very long time, we've really had a need to have more people interested in aviation, and we hope to at least play a role to help people guide their way through piloting as well. So it's exciting, and we hope that we can help more people that are interested in aviation from this as well.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to the 11th edition of the GATCA Technical Webinar Series. My name is Wilhelm Sakite Nyako, an air traffic controller with the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, and it is my pleasure to host today's webinar. I begin the program with a short prayer. Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you for today's webinar. Please guide the deliberations and deepen our understanding of content that is going to be shared. Amen. Kofi, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a pilot, he answered enthusiastically. Such interactions are common for many children growing up. For most of them, the only aviation professionals known to them are pilots. Pilots can humorously be called the face of aviation. However, delving into this exciting field uncovers many professionals who work tirelessly to keep this industry in motion. Decades ago, when aviation was birthed, the focus was to get people or goods from one point to another. Pilots were the most important professionals to achieve this. Someone had to successfully move that big machine from one place to the other. As aviation began to grow and became more dynamic, it became evident that other professionals needed to be engaged to work together with pilots to fly aircraft safely and successfully. Air traffic controllers, cabin crew, aircraft engineers, flight dispatchers, air traffic safety engineers, AIS officers, safety inspectors, and aviation meteorologists are a few technical professionals found in the aviation industry today. I'm sure many of you have not even heard of some of these professions. This edition of the GATCA Technical Webinar Series seeks to introduce us to the world of aviation and the different professionals working in this field. We shall interact with some distinguished personalities who will educate us about their respective professions. They shall share with us their journey into and within aviation, their successes, challenges, and what they project for the future of aviation. They shall also share with us what to consider in identifying the particular profession to take up, what qualifications are required, and what traits are needed. Today, we have an air traffic controller and a pilot to kickstart the first part of this 2-part series. Please join me to welcome our panelists for today, Ms. Jessica Asiedu and Mr. Joseph Otu. You are welcome, lady and gentlemen. Before I introduce the first speaker, please take note of the following information. Follow GATCA on our social media handles and send feedback regarding this webinar to info@gatka.org. This webinar will be uploaded onto the Gatka website www.gatka.org. That is www.ghatca.org, and on the YouTube channel of Gatka. If you have just joined us, please introduce yourself on the chat page and I will do well to acknowledge you. Send questions to the Q&A chat box and I'll get our panelists to answer them during the Q&A session. Our first panelist is Miss Jessica Asiedu. Jessica currently works at the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority as an air traffic controller with ratings in aerodrome, approach, and area control. She has a degree in computer science from the Ashesi University and happens to love most things aviation related. In her free time, she likes to work on humanitarian and social activities to help society. She also loves traveling and seeing new places. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Miss Jessica Asiedu as she takes the stage.
Hello, I'm going to give a presentation on how I got into air traffic control. So I'll start from...
Hello, Jessica.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and tell you about how I got into air traffic control.
Okay, I can hear you now. Please proceed.
All right. Okay, so when it comes to aviation, there are so many jobs in aviation. Globally, there are over 11.3 million direct jobs from aviation. There are airport operators, which accounts to over 600,000. Other airport-based roles, which are like 500 million. Retail, car rental, customs, immigration, freight forwarders, catering. So all these people are part of direct jobs that affect aviation. The airlines are also there with over 3 million. They have their flight and cabin crew, their airline executive, their ground services, check-in counters, people who do training for all their crew and other staff, and their maintenance staff for their equipment, aircraft, and other things. Then also there are engineers who work on the aircraft, and then we have air navigation service providers where I am. Most of this data is from 2019. The pandemic affected a lot of these numbers, but now most of these numbers are back to almost normal as at these statistics that I have. And then when it comes to indirect jobs, there are over 18 million. So as you can see, there are a lot of jobs that aviation actually handles that are in the millions. Then there's also construction as well. So the people who build the airports, who build the terminals, who build offices for people who work at the airports. Then there are people who sell other retail goods. There are people who do IT. So for instance, you need computers to get things working. And then those who do accounts, you have to collect your money and give out money sometimes. Then in tourism, these are indirect. So you have people traveling on aircraft to all sorts of places to do all sorts of things, and people generate money from this. Then other services, you have fuel tankers that provide fuel to aviation workers, to the aircraft, and also other foods. The catering services need food as well. So people will grow and provide food to other people, to these other people, so that they can also provide for the aviation service. So I'll go into air traffic control. What is air traffic control? Basically, I say that it's you are just trying to make sure the aircraft don't run into each other and everyone flies safely. The other thing is, half the time when you meet someone there and you say, oh, I'm an air traffic controller, they're like, are you the people who hold the butts by the runway? And said, no, it's not us. So if you don't know what an air traffic controller is, the first thing to know is not this. This person is a ground marshaller. They finally parked the aircraft after they've landed safely on the airport runway and now parking. So air traffic control, the Oxford Dictionary says it's a noun, and that it's the ground-based personnel and equipment concerned with controlling and monitoring air traffic within a particular area. So in this image, you have people working in the control tower and people working in the control center as well. So that's what we have here. And this is based in Accra. So when you're working in the control tower, you look outside to see the aircraft with your eyes. When you're working with radar, which is what people are doing in the picture below to the left, you are looking at aircraft on a screen to give them instructions also so that they don't run into each other. So what is involved in air traffic control? So air traffic control starts from the ground. So all the passengers who board their aircraft get in there, and then the pilot will talk to the air traffic controller. This will start from the control tower. In the control tower, the pilot can, the air traffic controller can see the aircraft. So the pilot will communicate with the air traffic controller and request to move from one point to another. So they'll move either maybe to a runway or to a taxiway. Usually the runway is the portion of the aircraft that they roll into the air, and then they roll to land as well. So that's the beginning. The aerodrome controller will speak to the pilots. Then after that, it moves on to the approach controller. So the aircraft that has taken off will now communicate to the approach controller in the air, where the approach controller sees them on the radar screen. So from there, they move on to the radar controller. So what happens is in the approach phase, you have more aircraft coming in and more aircraft going out. And so what the person sitting at approaches is kind of like feeds them into a bottleneck to make sure that everybody can come in one line and go out in one line. So that's what happens at the approach phase. Then the area phase is usually overflights and people leaving and people coming back. So what happens is everyone coming from another sector comes to you, and those doing overflights come to you as well. So that's with the area phase. So after the area phase, it goes back to the approach controller. So for instance, you're leaving Accra and you're going to maybe Abidjan, so which is from Ghana to Ivory Coast. So you talk to your control tower, you talk to your approach controller, then you talk to your area controller. So from your area controller in Accra, you talk to the area controller who is in Abidjan, and from there you move to the next person, which would be the approach controller in Abidjan. Then you talk to the aerodrome controller in Abidjan and land. So that's the phase. So it's the same way if you are going somewhere in Europe, you go from Accra, you move on to the next sector, which may be in Burkina Faso, then the next sector in like Niger or Algeria, then the next sector somewhere in Europe, maybe Spain, and then France, and then whichever country you are going to. So it's the same format. In the area sector, you move on from country to country. So you get to your arriving country, then you go back to the approach phase, then to the aerodrome phase, and then you land on the ground. So how to become an air traffic controller? So this is a general idea, depending whichever country you are in. So in most cases, you have to be at least 18 years of age. Normally, they request that the person should be under 30 years. And before you practice, you are given a license, and the license can only be issued after the age of 21. So even if you are taking in at 18, you probably work in different roles and do some other training, and then you can actually get a license at 21 years. The training takes a while, so it could take a year or two, depending on what course you're doing. So 21 may not be too far for 18. You also have to pass a medical test, a class 3 medical test. And this will be done by a medical professional who will certify and say that you are fit to do the work. Then there's also an English language test. So you have to be level 4 or above. The highest is 6. If you have a level 6, you don't have to do it again. If you are a level 4 or level 5, you have to do it again. Then also the other option is to join the Air Force. So you can join the Air Force in your native country or the Ghana Air Force. And in that way too, you can go on the path to become an air traffic controller. Normally, people who are doing air traffic control are expected to have good concentration skills, good knowledge of transport methods, and also the ability to use their judgments, make decisions, accept criticism, and work well under pressure, should have excellent verbal communication skills, be able to solve complex problems, be able to pay attention and to detail and be thorough when they are doing their work. And they should also be able to multitask. And then when it comes to air traffic control in Ghana, these are usually the things that you are required to have. You should be a Ghanaian citizen. You should have a bachelor's degree. Usually, this is from 2017, the last intake that was done, and these were the requirements that were given. So they should usually have a bachelor's degree, preferably in the physical sciences, ICT, engineering, mathematics, or a pilot's license. And the pilot's license should not be more than 25. Sorry, the person should not be more than 25 years, or in the case of the pilot, should not be more than 30 years. Then they should be declared physically and medically fit. And then also they shouldn't have any psychoactive substance abuse when they are checked by the medical examiners. So my journey into air traffic control in Ghana started with my application. So I sent my CV and other information that was required, and I was under the age that they required. Then I was called in for an aptitude test. And so we wrote a total of, I think, 3 aptitude tests. And it was over a period of time. I think it was over a year. It took a while to have it sorted out. Then we had a medical test. Then we moved on. So after the medical, those who passed, we now started working. And so we're more of working at a phase of a trainee. And then after a while, we're sent to do an ab initio course. The ab initio course is the first course you do before you actually start doing air traffic control, to understand various things that happen in the world of aviation and which happen in air traffic control. So some of the things that you study, this is not only in ab initio, it kind of runs across all the courses. So you study some information, general knowledge in ATC. So you need to understand how it works and the way it works. So even though you may not be working at an aerodrome position or an approach position or an area position, you need to understand what happens there, what happens in the different phases. That way, whatever you're expected to do, you can do it to assist any of the people in these positions. You also study meteorology. You need to know what the weather is like. You should be able to give an idea of what you see. If you're in the control tower, whatever weather you see, you should be able to tell the pilot, oh, I see clouds here, I see this there. And then the pilot also has their own information, and combined with that, they can make a judgment. And also if you see that it's very heavy rain, and you can inform the pilot, oh, it's raining very heavily here, they can also decide whether they are going to do one thing or another regarding the safety of themselves and the passengers. You also learn about navigation, how you are able to move around the world, whether it is using a ground aid. So we have some instruments we use on the ground for navigation. And then we also use technologies that are associated with GPS as well, to be able to move from point A to point B safely. Then human factors, how certain things affect your work as an air traffic controller, how it may affect the work as for other people in aviation that will affect your work as an air traffic controller. Then also you learn about the ATC equipment and then operations in ATC, how they work, how they function, and what you also need to do to get them to work and function properly, and what to do when they are not working or functioning properly. So after ab initio, then I moved on to do an aerodrome course. So after the aerodrome course, you get rated and then you get licensed and you can actually work. So as you can, I'm in the aerodrome in the picture on the top left, in the left, and then on the right, I'm working at an approach position. So after aerodrome, I moved to approach. And then after approach, I've moved to area. So where next? After doing all these things in air traffic control for all these years, what else can you do? You can also move on to become a manager and work within the ATC units, or be a manager of some portion of air traffic control. You can also become an instructor. You can become an on-the-job training instructor. You can become an air traffic control instructor. So for instance, if someone is doing an area course, an aerodrome course, an approach course, or whatever it has to do with ATC, new things that come up that you need to learn. As you can tell, the world is quite dynamic. So sometimes you need to learn new things. So you can become an instructor to help teach people who are actually already controllers or learning to become controllers so they learn. Then you can become an assessor. So an assessor would be somebody who confirm whatever the person you've taught has learned, understand whatever. So whoever learns something, there needs to be confirmation that they've learned it properly. So there's someone else who can assess. So you can become an assessor. You can move on to become a regulator as well. So you can regulate air traffic controllers, you can regulate those who are issued licenses and other things. You can also become a consultant if you want to be, maybe when it comes to investigating some sort of air traffic control issue, or maybe other ATC matters, someone can contact you and then you give them the person the information. You can become a specialist as well. There are procedures that we use, pilots and controllers use when they need to land or take off. You can help to design those procedures. You can move into the search and rescue area, safety management areas. You can plan airspace, design airspaces. You can move into the unmanned vehicles like drones. You can also volunteer or join in international activities. You have the UN, ICAO, the IFATCA, which is the Global Organization for Air Traffic Controllers Associations. So there are several things you can do after doing your usual air traffic control. So the other thing is maybe you can decide to become a pilot. That's another option. It all depends on what you want to do. So I'll just kind of end it here. I'll be standing by for any questions that you may have. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Jessica Asiedu, for the wonderful presentation. I believe that we have learned a lot, and I know that people would have questions for you at the end of the session or during the Q&A session. At this time, we will take a video, and I just want you to learn something small from the video.
Welcome to Ghana Civil Aviation Training Academy, where the skies meet excellence, located in the heart of Ghana.
The Ghana Civil Aviation Training Academy is an aviation training organization within the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. The academy has been set up primarily to provide competency-based training for the professionals within the aviation industry. Apart from that too, we are providing a number of training programs that ensures that even those that have completed secondary school are able to enroll to ensure that they have some profession for themselves in order that they can fit into the aviation industry. To that, we are running a number of programs that include the IATA courses, like the IATA Foundation, which has to do with airline ticketing and reservation. We are also running the flight dispatch course that right from the secondary school university you can enroll and also go through the training, and then eventually you get license. Then you can become more like a ground pilot that would be able to dispatch aircraft from an airport to the destination airport as well. Apart from that, there are a number of programs that the academy is engaged in. Recently, we have had an affiliation with the Project Management Institute. So what it means is that if you want to run, or if you want some career within or you want a professional certification in project management, it means that you would be able to participate, especially for those within the aviation industry and also those that want to enter in the industry. We are doing well. We have the state-of-the-art facilities to ensure that we provide that competency-based training for our clients, both in Ghana and abroad.
As part of our duties, GATA rents out its facilities to the public and other organizations for trainings, conferences, and symposiums which are not always aviation-centered. Ghana Civil Aviation Training Academy, your best option for aviation excellence and career.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you once again, Jessica, for this insightful presentation. I believe that we have learned a lot. I can see that questions are already pouring in, and we would ask those questions during the Q&A session. And I know Jessica would have wonderful answers for us. At this time, I will move on to, sorry, before I do that, let me acknowledge a few people who have joined us. I can see Nicholas Sele from Kenya. He's the technical advisor to IFATCA at ICAO's RPAS panel. Welcome, Nicholas. Derek Nunu, right here in Ghana. I see you. Thank you for joining us. And for everybody else, you are welcome. I'll do well to acknowledge you if you send me a hi in the chat box. I will introduce our second panelist for this morning's webinar. He is Mr. Joseph Otu, and he's a young aviator who is employed by a top regional airline headquartered in Accra, Ghana. He achieved his childhood ambition of becoming a commercial pilot 5 years ago and has been flying for the past 7 years. He is dedicated to upholding the highest industry standards, safety, and professionalism. In 2015, Joseph graduated from Ashesi University College. Subsequently, in 2017, he joined the renowned 43 Air School in South Africa. During his time there, Joseph stood out among his peers, clinching the Best Academic, Best Overall Student, and Safety Excellence Awards in his graduating class. Joseph enjoys weightlifting, traveling, and cooking with family and friends. He firmly believes that with perseverance and a clear why, no goal is impossible to achieve. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. Joseph Otu. Joseph.
Thank you very much, William. How do you read?
Can I see you?
How do you read? Yes, you may. Good morning.
Good morning, Joseph.
Yeah, how do you read?
I read you strength 5. That's great. That's great. It's good to have you.
Excellent.
And we're excited.
It's great to be here as well.
We are ready for you.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica, for a very exhaustive and very good presentation. It's interesting to see she also went to Ashesi. So this is not an Ashesi bias thing, but it's nice to see someone else from Ashesi in the industry as well. I'm just going to go straight towards my presentation. My presentation, I want it to be more inspirational to the people listening, and I want it to be very relatable. For a lot of people, when they think of a pilot, they think of somebody a bit far, but I just want people to know that you can be a young person. It's achievable for you as well. So I would like to share my screen if that's fine. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, you can see your screen. You're good to go.
Okay. Yes. So my name is Joseph Otu. This is my presentation. I am currently a commercial pilot. I'm working with Africa World Airlines. We're based here in Accra, in Ghana. I have been a commercial pilot for the past 5 years, and it's a role that I enjoy. It's very challenging, has its ups and downs, but it's something that passion will lead you to, and perseverance will get you through. So this is me as a young child. This is what my journey has been, getting up to the point that I'm now. This is me at 6 years old, quite frequently, my parents made me understand almost and taking off from Kotoka back in the day, departing. So my journey getting here was not straightforward. I started off in high school. I did general arts. I know a lot of people were wondering, do you need to do science? But I did general arts. I did general arts in Infantipim. I did history, geography, and the like. Then I went onwards to Ashesi. I have a business background from Ashesi University. Onwards from Ashesi, then I did my national service also in marketing and sales. Then I went to flying school. So before I went to flying school, hopefully this would be a push for somebody else, because before I went to flying school, I thought I was just going to go down the business route. I put away my dream of becoming a pilot away. And it was a chance encounter with a pilot, which made me rethink my decision to go back to flying school, or to start flying actually. So soon after I met her, we met in November, and in about 3 or 4 months, we were looking for flying schools with my folks, with my parents. I enrolled in flying school in South Africa in 2017. The course took me about a year and a half to complete. I completed in 2019, and I came back to Ghana. And coincidentally, I happened to be here just at the right time, got the job, and then COVID happened, and that's you know how it went with the whole industry. So that rendered me in a very difficult place. But once there was a rebound from Corona, I was called back into work, and that's what I've been doing for the past 5 years. So I'm a first officer. I have a Ghanaian CPL. That was converted over from a South African CPL before I could work here in Ghana. So I'm going to just do a brief overview of aviation through the ages, from where we've come from to where we are now. The first pilot flight, believe it or not, was just 120 years ago by the Wright brothers. It was a very short 12-second flight, and that happened in December 17th, 1903. Then onwards, we moved to the first transatlantic flight in 1919. That was a 16-hour flight from Newfoundland to Ireland. And then we have the onset of the World Wars that saw a fast track in the development of airlines, unfortunately used for fighting wars. And then came the jet engines, which were mainly used with the military side. Those were now used for commercial aviation in the 60s onwards. So we now see a lot of jets being used for commercial purposes. Aviation through the ages has become safe because of, I would say, trials and errors and learning from mistakes. So there were a lot of tragedies that have happened that have made aviation the safest mode of transportation that we have today. So, for example, one of the major ones was the Tenerife disaster. And from there onwards, we learned how to communicate better. The relationship between air traffic control, pilots, even outcome, and all of that. So aviation over the years has been an industry that has been changing and is ever evolving, especially towards a safety-oriented outcome. So for a lot of people, when they think about piloting, they just think of being a commercial pilot. So they think, oh, as a captain, but then it's really based on was very enthusiastic about traveling and just seaplanes. So he's flying seaplane, your niche in the market, what you're interested in. The first aircraft, for example, you can see those are people that are interested in doing private flying. So your high net worth individuals, which requires you to fly on a schedule which is mostly set by them. You have water planes. This is mainly in islands and so on and so forth, like Maldives. Then you have crop sprayers. You can even fly a crop sprayer. We have planes like this, which are mostly in areas with a lot of bush flying. So like Kenya, Botswana, and the like, these are caravans that you can fly. We also have drone pilots, which is a new entrance into the market. You can be a drone pilot if that is something that interests you. And we have, of course, what everybody is quite familiar with, which is commercial flying as a pilot. So we're going to touch on the aviation story in Ghana, where we have come from, where we are, and where we are going to. So we first started with the terminal we have, for example, in Ghana was only recently built. Before, the airport was a British Air Force station in 1946. The terminal was added in early 2000s. We see that the enlargement of the terminal building, and that was later followed by the arrival of the Terminal 3, the new building we have at the airport. And we've recently seen the opening of the new terminal in Kumasi, and the new terminal in Tamale as well. We understand there's going to be expansion of the Kumasi runway. So aviation in Ghana is not where it used to be. It's improving. There are a lot of expansions. We have some airlines which were there, no longer there, unfortunately. We have our flagship airline, Ghana Airways, which went down. By the moment, we have two domestic airlines which are moving at approximately 500,000 plus people every year across the skies in Ghana and in the South region. So we have mainly Africa World, and then we have Passion Airlines. For the future, New Horizons, we are looking, there's talk every now and then about us having another national airline. We'll see how that goes. But if anything, we're supposed to look at what has happened. We can see that Ghana was able to come back after the corona downturn. The passenger figures were able to pick back up to where they were previously. And we're hoping that the industry is very dynamic and would continue to improve, and the numbers will increase. So now I'm going to be talking about your dreams, your goals, and your challenges. This is very important. Parents, guidance counselors, young people, even in university, that we can take a pen and a paper and we can go through a SWOT analysis. This is a very important thing for you to do. So a SWOT analysis is very simple. A SWOT analysis is, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the opportunities in the industry? So that is external. And what are the threats in the industry? That's external as well. So strengths and weaknesses, those are things within your control. Opportunities and threats are things that are outside of your control for the purposes of this presentation. So for example, strengths, you want to become a pilot. You can say, for example, I know I have the ability to handle a lot of pressure. For example, I'm good with managing my time. I'm somebody that is conscientious. I'm somebody that can study without anybody, forcing me to do anything. Like, I'm driven enough. Weaknesses, for example, you know your own weaknesses. You can point them out and say, these are things that I need to improve on to become a pilot. So you have to do your own SWOT analysis to know that if this is the right thing for you to do. Opportunities. You're looking at Ghana, for example, new entrants into the market, airlines, for example, retirement even of older pilots. That means new pilots might be needed, or pilots moving from Ghana elsewhere. That means there might be jobs that will be opening up in Ghana, for example. So then you want to look at those. Are there new opportunities in the market for me to join at this point in time? Threats. Corona, if Corona, for example, happens, if there's a global downturn, economics, how am I going to be able to navigate that? So when you put this SWOT analysis together, you can be able to see if aviation or piloting in this instance is the right thing for you to do. I did this analysis before I went to school, and I can tell you that it's very important to do this, especially if you're a parent, you want to do this with your child so that they can see where they fall and work on areas they can improve on. So who is a good pilot? This picture is a picture of Captain Sally, who is the pilot that landed in the Hudson River. He was able to land in the Hudson River according to him based on years of experience. Aside all the training he's had, but years of experience, what makes a good pilot? You have to have a long life desire to learn. It never stops. You keep studying, you keep learning. For example, as a pilot, I, for example, need to go for training twice every year in the simulator. We're tested on our flying skills, we get tested on emergencies, we're tested, we even have tests on our technical knowledge and company procedures, SOPs, that's standard operating procedures and the like. It never ends. Every now and then, people see me sitting down with books and I'm wondering what I'm studying. It's because of work. You have to be interested in studying. You have to be abreast with new material. So it's something that you must be interested in doing. You have to have strong time management skills. If you're to show up to work at 5:05 in the morning, you have to be there on time. Passengers can't be waiting for you. You have to be able to manage your time as well. You must be able to lead, and in some instances, be led as well. So leadership is a very important quality because in aviation, you must be able to make informed decisions which will lead to a safe outcome. But leadership always comes with knowledge. So when you have the knowledge through learning, you'll be able to make informed decisions. Situational awareness in aviation is very important. That means, are you aware of everything that's going on around you that would lead to a safe outcome? As a pilot, when you're flying, there are so many distractions and there are so many things happening around you. You must be flying the aircraft, whether manually or using the autopilot. You must be able to hear calls from, well, even maybe from the Ghana, from maybe Jessica is calling me on the frequency, or whoever is in tower, and I must be able to hear those calls, understand those calls, read them back, and carry out the actions that I'm being asked to do, right? This is very important. I must know what the aircraft is doing at every time. I must be able to follow the SOP. I must be able to keep it within its, the set parameters, certain speeds. I must be flying a certain direction if I'm ordered to do so. You must be able to do that. Problem solving skills. Every day can be different. You go into the plane, you expect things to go a certain way, but if they change, you must be dynamic enough to go with the flow and have a safe outcome. And last but not the least, these are just a few, but these I think what are some of the most important ones. You must be able to keep calm under pressure. Some days will test your patience. Some days you'd have situations you never expected to happen, but you must be able to keep calm and you must be able to follow the right procedures. Now, people will be wondering, who is a pilot? The face of aviation is changing for the better. Now, a pilot, don't think of a pilot as an older man or somebody who is just privileged. A pilot can be anyone. You can be
Hello, Joseph. Hello, Joseph. Looks like we are having a little break from your end.
young, you can be old, you can be a pilot. What you need is you need to be passionate about the role. You must want.
Hello, Joseph. Okay, I think we have lost Joseph there briefly. He's surely going to get back and then we will be able to hear the rest of his presentation. As I wait for Joseph to get back, let me just acknowledge a few people. I have Tanele Sukati from Eswatini. Tanele Sukati from Eswatini. Good to have you. I have Tony Kepler from the Uganda RVP Ifatka East Africa. Yes, he's the Uganda Regional Vice President. Sorry, Tony Kepler is from Uganda, and he's the Regional Vice President for IFATCA, East Africa. We have Opa Funso Abolade, who is here at GATA. Opa Funso, good to have you. We have Jack from Uganda, and we have Mufaro, who is at Mark 1 Aviation. Mufaro, good to have you. Mark 1 Aviation Academy in South Africa. We have Derek Kuma from Accra, Ghana. I have Phoebe Grant. Phoebe, good to have you from Legon. And I have Isaac Apuri. Isaac Apuri from KNUST. Thank you very much for joining in, and I'm sure you are learning a lot from our two panelists. Do we have Joseph back?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great, Joseph. Okay, so we lost you when you were after you talked about the good pilot. So if you could take it from there again, and then I'm sure we are good to roll.
Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about the breakage.
No problem.
All right. Then I'll go back a bit. So I'll just brush over, just so anybody who didn't hear what it makes to be a good pilot will be on the same page.
Sure.
All right. So I said to be a good pilot, you have to have a lifelong desire. Can you see my page?
Okay, we can see your face. Do we have your screen?
Let me share the screen. Okay.
Okay, perfect. I think we have your screen now.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I was talking about what it takes to be a good pilot, right? A lifelong desire to learn, because the learning never stops. Time management skills. Time is essential in aviation. An ability to lead. Leadership is an important quality. And I said leadership obviously can only be best when you have the requisite knowledge, which comes through continuous learning. Situational awareness, you must always be able to have an idea of where you are in space, what the aircraft is doing, the parameters that you have to be working with, whether it's the speed, aircraft limitations, so on and so forth. Then problem-solving skills, you have to be able to navigate different instances. For example, a day can never be the same when it comes to aviation. You have weather, you have different things that are coming through. The aircraft might have an issue, and you must be able to solve those. And you must be able to work under pressure. Pressure can come, from different things. It can come from the airport. It can come from the number of aircraft operating in the area. It can come from time restraints. It can come from even like your duty period or duty time. There are different things that can put a pilot under pressure, but you must be able to operate under pressure as a pilot. Then I was speaking about what is the face of aviation. And I'm saying, thankfully, now a pilot, when you think of a pilot, you don't think of an older gentleman, because now everybody has the chance to become a pilot if you have what it takes to become a pilot. For example, now this is Zoe, right? Zoe is the first Black woman to fly for Air Canada. She's flying the 777, which is a huge
His screen
aircraft.
showing. But I am not seeing anything to like this one.
Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
we can see your screen now.
Okay. So what I'm trying to hint at here is anybody can be a pilot. Age restrictions are not a problem. Once you pass the age of 18, you are able to get a CPL. Can you hear me?
Hear you.
Okay, I'm wrapping up here. So I was saying that the face of aviation has changed, and now anybody can become a pilot. You don't need to be an older gentleman. Once you're passionate and once you have the prerequisite skills, you can become a pilot as well. I know people who went to flying school at 18. I know people who were in flying school in their 30s, some in their 40s. So it's very possible for you to become a pilot. Just research if it's a right choice for you and choose the right school and have a plan of action to go into aviation. So thank you very much. This is the end of my presentation, and I hope we've all been inspired, and it has encouraged somebody to take the next step in their aviation journey. I'll be open to any questions if there are any in the chat box or after when we have the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Joseph. That has been a very insightful presentation, and I believe that we've had the opportunity to learn a lot. I can see that questions are coming in. Many people have questions, and I like what you said about being a good pilot. Experience will help you to become a good pilot and continuous learning. Thank you very much, Joseph. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall take a short video, after which we'll come back and move straight to the Q&A session. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure that you have been very much informed and you have started making some decisions already. For those of us who logged on a little bit later, I just want to give a little summary of what our panelists have given us, especially from our air traffic controller, Jessica. Jessica mentioned that an air traffic controller is not a marshaller. So we should always take note of that. Many people think that those who have those things and wave them on the ground are air traffic controllers. No, those are ground marshallers. Air traffic controllers are found in a control tower or behind the radar screen. She also mentioned that you must have the ability to use your judgment properly, and you must pay attention to detail. She also outlined how she started her journey from being an assistant to doing aerodrome control, approach control, and then finally area controller. And she's currently an area controller. And then she also said that if you desire to be an air traffic controller, you must have a science background. You must study science or mathematics related subject in the university. I'm sure that as time goes on, if there is anything, Jessica will enlighten us on it. I have a few questions from our audience, and I want to just put a few of them across, starting with Jessica. Miss Jessica, I see is your video on?
Yes, my
Yes.
video is on.
I think it was off when you were making your presentation. We'd like to see your lovely face. Okay, the first question I have here is, from our Ghanaian context, what course should I study in school to be an air traffic controller? I believe you mentioned this in your presentation, but specifically, what should I study in the SHS level? And if I have not studied science in SHS, does it mean that my dream is over?
Well, from what I gather, if you have what you study in the SHS level may not really matter. What matters is your university degree. So what you study in SHS may help you as a person, but when it comes to applying, usually they look for a geography background or a science background, or depends on what the requirements are. But usually it's a science, geography, or mathematics kind of background. So that's what you should look out for. So maybe in the university, you can do something that is a BSc in something, and that would help you with your application.
Okay, so if I am doing an engineering course or computer science, it means I'm good to go. What about someone who studied geography?
There's a possibility, depending on what requirements there are in the application. Geography may be an option. Besides, there are many other things that come with the requirements. So if you pass and then maybe you're given the opportunity to write the test and you pass, then maybe you can move forward as well. So there are exceptions in certain cases, especially if it's something that the HR or whoever is doing the hiring things will be relevant in air traffic control with the requirements given.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jessica. I'll take a last question to Jessica, and then I'll move on to Joseph. And when you were making your presentation, Jessica, you talked about the age to start. I believe you mentioned 18 years or so. That is, I believe if you're an adult, or 21. I don't know which one it is. Could you clarify on that? And then in answering that, would you say for someone who is, say, 35 years, 40 or 50 years, is it too late to become an air traffic controller now?
Okay, so I'll answer your question backwards. So when you are over 35, you usually don't get the opportunity. I think in Ghana, the cutoff point is even 25 years. They made an exception of 30 years for people who already had a pilot's license in one of the times that the applications were going on. But the 18 years is more of a global age. And some countries take you from 18 years because when you start, you do a lot of training, and you can also work as an air traffic control assistant before you actually become an air traffic controller. So they allow the age 18 years in certain countries. And the age of 21 is ICAO, which is the International Civil Aviation Organization. That's the age that they actually give you a license to work as an air traffic controller. So if you come in at 18 in whichever country you are in, you may work as an assistant, and then maybe by 21, you could have been trained as air controller, and then you can get your license. So that's the clarification on the 18 and the 21. And then Ghana, usually the cutoff age is 25, and there are exceptions made to people who already have experience in the aviation industry. That was what I'm not sure if that's what will always happen. So if you are up to 30 years and you have a pilot license, they may give you that exception. So that's what the knowledge I have. I hope I've answered clearly.
Yes, you indeed have. Maybe a little disappointing for someone who is already 35 years at that moment. But well, there are other careers or professions in aviation, so don't be too let down. You still can get into aviation if it is not an air traffic controller. Thank you very much, Jessica. Thank you so much. Please keep your video still on. More questions will be coming to you. Okay, I'll throw the next question to Joseph. And Joseph, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I read you 5x5.
Nice. I read you 5x5 as well. Someone wants to know, Joseph, from a Ghanaian context, what course should one study in school to be a pilot? I realize that you said you have a business background from your tertiary level. Is that what is needed? Do I also need to have studied science before? Or is it just any course and I can pursue the desire to be a pilot? You can also chip in whether you need a degree before you can study to be a pilot or train to be a pilot.
So in my case, I went to flying school in South Africa. I did not need a degree. It was not a requirement, but it was a plus. What you needed was a pass in English, you needed a pass in mathematics, and they needed a pass in general sciences. And the pass was required from high school. So basically your WASI pass, or equivalent. So mathematics, science, and English. Yeah, those three were the main requirements that they needed for you to get into flying school. But I would say, however, having a degree it's quite important. You always need something to fall back on. It's not a requirement, but it's always great that you get a degree, especially for the future. If you want to branch out into anything else in aviation, a degree would be good to have, but it's not a requirement for where I went to school in South Africa.
Okay, so if I get you correctly, it means that whatever course I study, I can still be a pilot for as long as I have proficiency in English and then I didn't get the other part.
English, mathematics, and science.
Okay, so English, mathematics, and science from the SHS level is enough.
Yeah, once I got the passes in those, it was good to go.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's quite exciting news for some of our young people who are with us today. And the next question is, at what age do you start? And is it also too late if one is, say, 35 years or 40 years or 50 years?
Okay, that's a good question. You can start at any age, really, but there are requirements, especially for those that start really young. So you can get a PPL, which is the most basic of licenses. I believe that's about 16, 17 years. CPL, you need to be 18, which is the next level. Then an ATPL at 21 years. So you can start that young, and it goes all the way until retirement, until 60. So you can go to flight school almost at any age, but you must be fit to fly. So you must have a class 1 medical if you want to fly commercially. That's mainly the other requirement. Just have a good bill of health, and any age is fine. So as I said in my presentation, I was in school with people some people were 18, some people were 35, some people were even about almost 40. So the age range is not really a problem. It's not a problem if you want to go at any age.
Okay. Another bit of good news for those of us who want to be pilots. It means that I can even decide to be a pilot when I'm age 45 or 50. That's good news for us.
Yeah. As long as your health is fine, you get a class 1 medical, you're good. Yes.
Okay, you mentioned PPL, you mentioned CPL, you mentioned ATL. Maybe I'll just give you some time to, if you can talk briefly about what those are.
All right. So the licenses are, I'll just explain in a very simple way. They are in grades. Let me put it that way. So when you go to school, the first license you'll be working with is an SPL, a student pilot license. That will allow you to fly the plane as a student pilot. You can fly solo, you can do navigation flights and things like that. And then you get a PPL now. So the PPL actually now allows you to navigate, but you can't fly passengers and collect money. So you can just fly. You can fly your family and friends. So you can get a PPL. You can fly as a hobby if you have a PPL. Then you now get a CPL, which is a commercial pilot's license. That's what I have, which allows you to fly for pay. So to get a CPL, there are requirements which are stipulated in every country under the aviation law. Typically, you need to be 18 years. You need to meet a certain number of minimum flight hours and pass exams, written exams, and then you must pass some skill tests or check rides. Then you get an ATPL, which is the highest level or license that you can get. So for an ATPL license, you need to be 21 years. You need to have a minimum of 1,500 flight hours, and that's the highest license. So it goes from student pilot license, then you go to PPL, you go to CPL, then you go to the ATPL. So that's how it goes.
Oh, I see. Thank you very much
In a
for that
nutshell.
clarification, Joseph.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take a few questions from our audience, and as time goes on, any more questions that come up, we'll put it across. There's one question specifically to you, Joseph. It says, "Thanks for your presentation." And the question is that, what has been your greatest challenge whilst flying?
Oh, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. I think every pilot, your greatest challenge is thinking that you know it all. You always have to learn, so you have to be humble. That is, I'll say that's your biggest challenge, remaining humble at all times, because every day is a learning curve for you. So the way we're taught in flying school, when you come back home every day, you have to review the day. How did I fly today? How could I have flown better? Was there a challenge that I faced? How can I navigate this challenge in a better way next time using the right procedures? So I'd say the challenge is remaining humble and being a very teachable person. That's something I won't call it a challenge, but I'd say that's something that a lot of pilots have to work on or to navigate all the time, because you don't know it all, and every day will teach you something new.
Thank you very much, Joseph, for answering the question.
All
In
right,
case
thank you,
anyone
Jessica.
wants to know what my challenge has been, I feel
Yes.
like every day there are different challenges that come up. Some are very basic. So it's never the same situation every day, as Joseph has mentioned. Sometimes you have to review the day and see what happens, because every day there's something
Yeah.
new. One day you have an issue with weather, another day you have an issue with something that will be completely different. And even though you are taught to handle emergency situations and all sorts of situations, there are days when it's completely different from what you're expecting. So you kind of use what you've learned and what your experiences to take each day
Yeah.
as it comes and then make the best of it.
Mm.
Okay, so I think I may have answered this question already. Some may have asked again, the age required. I think I mentioned that earlier
Yeah.
on. So usually the age is up to 25 years for now, starting from I think 18 years. So
Yeah.
for now, our host is a little indisposed. We'll go through some of the questions, and
Sure.
so please hold on a minute. Let us find your important questions. Okay, so there's a question, I think, Joseph, is for both of us. And it's
All right,
asking
this one.
what the challenges are facing air traffic control and pilots today. So if you go first, then I'll continue.
That's a good question. Challenges facing air traffic control. Um, that's a very good question.
Joseph, are you around? I think we may have lost you. Okay, so when it comes to air traffic control, some of the challenges I think we face is technology.
Let me think about it. You go first. Ladies first.
Well, okay, wow. Okay,
You
we
go first.
lost you for a moment there, Joseph. Sorry. So with air traffic control, I think one of the challenges is technology and then staffing. Staffing in the sense that it takes a while to train people. And so sometimes as I pointed out earlier on, there are a lot of other things you can go into, and some of those jobs are actually required to get air traffic control to function properly. So sometimes you need more staff and they are not readily available because you cannot have somebody immediately. It takes at least a year or two to train them for them to understand things properly and work effectively and efficiently. The other thing I'll see as a challenge is technology. So technology is evolving very fast. And funny enough, some of the equipment and tools we use for our work are up to 100 years old. And we are still able to use them now, but then there are also new things that keep coming up. So you have to be abreast with century-year-old technology and very modern technology, and it's very interesting. So and sometimes you actually have to combine the two. So there are a lot of people who have the opportunity to put these things together and make sure they all work effectively and efficiently. So because of technology, too, you have to keep learning new things. So there's always something new to learn, no matter what you do. So that's what I see as some basic challenges with air traffic control at this time. So maybe, Joseph, you can tell us what you think the challenges are with pilots.
I would say the challenge with pilots now is we've been hearing many times that there's a pilot shortage. So we always say that the industry needs more pilots because a lot of young people are not going into aviation. But the reason why a lot of young people are not going into aviation, and I've seen that question in the chat, is one of the main reasons is the cost of training. So that has become a problem. There are a lot of people that are interested in becoming pilots, have the passion to become a pilot and can be good pilots, but because of the cost of the training with our industry at the moment, it needs people, but it's very expensive on this part. Yeah.
Question for you, Joseph. The flights where you had your training in, do they provide sponsorships for training? And if not, how did you fully finance your training?
So as I just said earlier, the cost of training can be quite steep. However, there are ways you can stagger it. I was fortunate enough to have my training paid for me by my family. But that's not the case for everybody. There were no scholarship programs where I went for foreigners. But the people from the country, they had scholarship programs, but not for foreigners. So the foreigners, we had to pay for our training. But if you go and do what you call a modular course, it can become a lot more affordable for you. So instead of just doing a straight up ATPL or CPL course, you break it up. You do PPL, then you do the CPL, but that would take a longer time, but then can end up being more affordable in the long run. So that's also something that somebody can consider doing. It's a modular course. That's basically doing the licenses in breaks, not just at once. So that's something you can consider. And also just decide kind of school that you want to go to. So there are some schools which tag themselves as more renowned schools with smaller planes. It might take a longer time. So those are things you can consider, even different than it is flying in, say, the US or in South Africa. So even the country that you decide to go to should be a consideration for you. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you very much, Joseph.
Yeah.
There are a few more questions regarding qualifications to be a pilot. So maybe you can just give another overview again, because I think you said all you need is to have English, mathematics, and science, but some other people are asking about qualifications. So you talk about that, and then after I'll talk about the controller side.
All right. Okay. So qualifications or
Sorry,
just how
and
to get
one
to flight
person
school?
asked about being an air hostess,
Hostess. Oh, I saw that question as well. I'll come to that. So to become a pilot, or when I was going to flight school, certain requirements were you needed a police certificate. You needed to show that you don't have a criminal past, right? You needed to have a clean bill of health, as I said. As is the case with air traffic controllers, it's the same with pilots. You need to have a medical certificate that says you have a clean bill of health. So, for example, every year with the test I do, they check your eyes, they check your hearing, they check your heart function, they check some internal organs, they check your overall function. You need to be healthy to be a pilot. So even when you're going to flying school, you yourself, if, for example, you're going to flying school and you know, for example, I'm colorblind, it's something that you should know that would stand in the way of you getting a CPL. So those are considerations to have, aside just having the passes in the courses that I spoke about. So yeah, every school also has their own requirements to get into the school. So you have to check on the website or get in touch with the particular school in that particular country to know what they require. So that's what I have to say for that. With the air hostess, that is not my area of expertise, to be honest. It really is not my area of expertise. But then I know that there are some training schools for air hostesses in Ghana. In my company, I understand the air hostesses need to have a degree, but you can't quote me on that. That I can't say very well. It's not my area of expertise about the air hostess. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Joseph.
Yeah. So I'll speak about the things I know. Air hostess, I can't really speak to it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. So regarding the qualifications when it comes to air traffic control, usually if you have a BSc in something, you should be able to get away with the initial qualification. But also depends on what else has been added on for qualification as well. So I think if you see an advert for it, you should just look at what the conditions are. And as Joseph mentioned, you need to be healthy. You need to have a police check as well. So you do a medical, you do a police background check as well. So all of those things are also quite important. So you may have the qualifications on paper, but if you don't have the physical qualification or any other qualification that may be listed or be required, you still may not be able to. But I think the host mentioned that there's so many other jobs out there. And as I pointed out, there are lots of jobs. There are millions of jobs in the aviation industry. So you're not limited to just pilots and air traffic controllers. I believe our host is available again. So if you kindly welcome our host, Mr. Wilhelm Nyaku. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph and Jessica. And my apologies to the audience and to our panelists for the little break in transmission from my end. I believe that some well-informed information has come to us and we'll make our choices accordingly. I'm grateful to you, Joseph and Jessica. And I have a few more questions I want to put across before we round up on today's session. One of the things that we want to know is, there's a question from somebody in the audience. He says, how is GIS specialist needed in aviation? Maybe I would ask Jessica.
So GIS has a lot to do with places on the earth and positions on the earth. And pilots need to know where they are and where they are going. We also use a lot of maps and charts in what we are doing. Even though we have technology assisting us, you still need a reference point, either in a computer system or on a ground-based aid, depending on what you are doing. So with a GIS specialist, the person may assist in getting information on coordinates, on positions of things. It could be obstacles, it could be places. Depending on what the person is needed for, they could also assist in helping to create and design charts and maps. It all depends because they have something to do with maps and then charts and references to the earth. So usually
Right.
the person may be needed when it comes to charting, mapping, and reference of locations and points on the earth. So I think that would be what a GIS specialist would be needed for in aviation. It can go beyond that. So you can read more about it, and then I'm pretty sure you find a lot of information out there.
Okay, thank you very much, Jessica. If there are no questions any more questions from the audience, I'll put my final question out to Jessica and to Joseph. We want to know, what is the future of aviation in Ghana and maybe in Africa? And are we expecting to have more job openings in the air traffic control section and also in the pilot section? Or is it going to still be a close-knit and not too many people will be getting? Maybe I'll take it from Jessica first.
This is a very, very, very big question. I think it's a very difficult to answer because it's in Ghana as a whole. Aviation in Ghana, I feel, has been a little back and forth. It's improved. I think it's been stable for a while. So if it continues being stable like this, I think in the next few years, you see the airlines that are currently running expanding. Probably we'll have more operators in other things also coming up. Maybe a few more private airlines expanding and coming up, and it looks like it can grow easily once things stay stable. But if things, I'm not an expert in this, so this is kind of like my perspective of what could happen. But I see it growing. It's a very big industry, and if you are able to get to a point where it's cheaper to run operations in aviation in Ghana, it will really explode, and we may not even be able to handle it because I think most of our limitations are the costs and the expenses that come with aviation.
Yeah, true.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Joseph?
Piggybacking what she said, that's very true. Running an airline, for example, is quite expensive. Fuel and things like that. So if those things, we don't control the prices, unfortunately. But if we are able to get a hold on our operational costs, and for example, the airports are expanding, runways are being expanded, as we can see in Kumasi. That keeps going on. People continue to fly because it's the shortest way, it's the quickest way of getting across the country. It's also the safest way of getting across the country. Once people understand that benefit, I think it can continue to grow. From our side of town, from our side of things as pilots, we can see that the figures of passengers have remained stable. Hopefully, they increase steadily as the years go on. But yeah, I think it would get better.
Well, I believe you've said it. Okay, I've just received a question from one of the from an audience member. It says, please, if I may ask, what does it mean to be English level 4 and above? Maybe Joseph, you can take that.
Okay, so the English language proficiency goes all the way from 1 to 6. Once you get a 4, I believe that means you might need to do the English proficiency test after, I believe it's 5 years or so. Don't quote me, but if you have a 6, for example, you don't need to do the test again. So you have a test with somebody that will determine your skill, where you fall on the English proficiency test. So the highest is a 6. But if you have a 4 or 5, you might need to redo the test after a certain length of time. Jessica, do you have anything to add?
Yes. So the English, so aviation works with English. So when it comes, so English is the language for aviation. So generally, the English language test is kind of technically aviation English, a test on English, which has something to do with English. So whatever you do, you should be able to communicate and express yourself in English. It doesn't have to be in general, but it has to be related to aviation. So if you have a problem, you should be able to express yourself in English, but it has to be related to aviation. So you may have a problem with your car, you can't say it in English, but if you have a problem with your aircraft, you should be able to say, oh, this is what is wrong with my aircraft in English. They grade it such that, so level 4, I think after 3 years, you have to take the test again. And then level 5, I think after 6 years, you have to take the test again. So it just means that you can communicate in English, but you're not perfect. So if you have anything below a 4, you have failed and you can't work operationally, because it means that you can't communicate with other pilots and other controllers, because you may work with a pilot from a different place who doesn't have English as their main language, or some other cabin crew who also doesn't have English as their main language. So generally, is the English is used in aviation. However, in other so there are other languages that you can use. So if you're in Russia, China, I think French is allowed, Spanish is allowed, Arabic is allowed, because certain operations don't go beyond maybe a certain country. So people in Spain, flying in Spain, air traffic controllers in Spain, it's an official language they can use. They can speak Spanish. In French-speaking countries, they can speak French. But it only affects, so in Chinese-speaking countries, then they can speak Chinese. But then when you have another pilot that doesn't speak that language and they are flying, they also kind of get a little lost in what is happening around there. That's the only challenge. But usually, English is the main language that is used.
Okay, thank you very much, Jessica. And the little I'll add to it is for the proficiency level 6, means that you take that exam, you pass, you go at level 6, you don't take the exam again. And even if you are in an English-speaking country, you still have to take that proficiency test to ascertain that you are indeed able to communicate effectively in English. Okay, another question has come. It says, please, if I may ask, what does it mean to be medical class 3? And then maybe would also explain class 1, since Joseph mentioned that.
Okay, so I don't have the exact details of what is in the class 3 or a class 1 medical certification. Maybe Joseph has it. I'd have to find the actual documents. So we have rules and regulations that are given to us. So basically, you run some tests. So your ears are checked, your eyes are checked, your physical is checked. They run blood tests and urine tests to make sure you don't have any substances in you. Your heart is also checked. So, and I think earlier on, Joseph mentioned color blindness. So if you are color blind, you actually can't work, because some of the colors that we use on the radar screen or whatever screen you are using, you need to be able to tell whether it is red or green or blue or whichever color. So with the class 3, it's medical certification. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact details here. So maybe you can check online for the details. And you have to pass in order to have your license to work. So if you do not pass it, you cannot work as an air traffic controller. You'd have to either be given another assignment or a different role, or you'd have to move into another role that I may have mentioned earlier that an air traffic controller can do when they are not doing air traffic control anymore.
Okay, thank you very much. Joseph, do you have anything to add?
I think Jessica said it all.
Joseph, can you hear me? Okay, maybe we'll take a response from Joseph later. Do we have any question from the audience again? Okay. At this juncture, I believe that we have...
Set by the civil aviation.
Sorry, Joseph, you can go ahead. Hello, Joseph, you can go ahead. Okay, we seem to have lost Joseph once more. Okay. At this juncture, I would like to thank our esteemed panelists for their time and the valuable information they have shared. I personally have been inspired so much, and I know all of our audience have been inspired as well. We want to thank the executives and members of GATCA, the Ghana Air Traffic Controllers Association, for making this webinar happen. Our special thanks also goes to the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority for their immense support over the years. We are very grateful. To the team that worked tirelessly to make this webinar run smoothly, I say, Ayiko. And to our audience, you have been phenomenal. This webinar would not have been a success without your participation. I trust that we are all eager to learn more and look forward to the part 2 of the series, I Want to Be an Aviation Professional. And I believe that the questions about cabin crew and other aviation professionals will be answered in part 2 and probably part 3. I promise you that all of these series will be equally as exciting and informative as this one. Keep checking our website and our social media handles and be the first to know when the date is announced. Thank you, Midase, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you very much, William.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Welcome to Ghana Civil Aviation Training Academy, where the skies meet excellence, located in the heart of Ghana.
The Ghana Civil Aviation Training Academy is an aviation training organization within the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. The academy has been set up primarily to provide competency-based training for the professionals within the aviation industry. Apart from that too, we are providing a number of training programs that ensures that even those that have completed secondary school are able to enroll to ensure that they have some profession for themselves in order that they can fit into the aviation industry. To that, we are running a number of programs that include the IATA courses, like the IATA Foundation, which has to do with airline ticketing and reservation. We are also running the flight dispatch course that right from the secondary school or university you can enroll and also go through the training, and then eventually you get license. Then you can become more like a ground pilot that would be able to dispatch aircraft from an airport to the destination airport as well. Apart from that, there are a number of programs that the academy is engaged in. Recently, we have had an affiliation with the Project Management Institute. So what it means is that if you want to run, or if you want some career within the, or you want a professional certification in project management, it means that you would be able to participate, especially for those within the aviation industry and also those that want to enter in the industry. We are doing well. We have the state-of-the-art facilities to ensure that we provide that competency-based training for our clients, both in Ghana and abroad.
As part of our duties, GATA rents out its facilities to the public and other organizations for trainings, conferences, and symposiums which are not always aviation-centered. Ghana Civil Aviation Training Academy, your best option for aviation excellence and career.